Hello, friends. We are working on our Langtree Charter PLP right now. So what I would love for you to do is pull this PLP out and something to write with. And we are going to go through this step by step so that you understand the different components that go with the PLP. The first thing that I need for you to do is write your name at the top of your PLP where it says student name and your grade level. Then what I want you to do is really focus in on the student goals being SMART. And what that means is that the goals have different components that start with the letters in the word SMART. So you will see here the S stands for specific, the M stands for measurable, the A stands for attainable, the R stands for realistic or relevant, and the T stands for time-oriented. And if you haven't written a SMART goal yet, or maybe you did one in elementary school but you have forgotten, we are going to go through some SMART goals right now so that you understand, because a lot of the PLP is really going to rely on these SMART goals. So you will see that there are three components, that there is a goal, which is the specific statement. There are action plan steps that we are going to take, and then a timeline for completion. And you will see that this is reflected right here where it says SMART, goal and action steps. So you can see the action plan. Our timeline is here. The action plan and steps go here in this box, and the actual goal statement goes in this box. So before we do that, let's watch a little video here so that you can understand and have a good idea of what a SMART goal actually is.
Setting SMART goals is a great way to practice what it feels like to have self-control, to have control over your destiny. It's so important to allow children to set their own goals, because if we're setting them for them, it may not have any relevance to the student at all. The S in the SMART goal talks about being specific. Natalie, how did you set a specific goal about improving on the flute?
I said I would learn how to play low E and F sharp on the flute.
So that's very specific, rather than just saying, I'm going to get better at this. The M in SMART stands for measurable. Aiden, tell us how you planned to measure whether you had achieved your goal.
With my goal, I was trying to reduce my race time to 47 seconds. So with each race and each time, I could see how far I got.
And you were able to say, I went from this amount of time to this amount of time. So that you can measure that really readily. The A stands for attainable. Kennedy, you had a goal about soccer. But if I look outside right now, it's not exactly soccer season. So how did you do that?
I practiced in my basement and whenever I could at indoor soccer.
So Ellie, you didn't set out to learn calculus. You set out to become more fluent and more accurate in your long division. Gavin, I wanted to ask you about the T part of the SMART goal, which is that it's time sensitive. You decided you wanted to read 3 of the Warriors books, and how long did you give yourself for that?
3 weeks.
So 3 books in 3 weeks. And that is a very helpful way to stay focused on your goal. Say, oh, someday I'm going to read these 3 books. If you say in 3 weeks, I'm going to read these 3 books, then that's a great way to help you stay focused and help you have the self-control you need to reach your goal.
Okay, so
hopefully that gave you a great idea of what a
SMART goal looks like and how to use SMART goals in your instruction and in your classroom and in this PLP that we are working on. So let's look at some SMART goals. And let's make some decisions here. These are SMART goals that were written by students. So the first one says, I will read 20 books by the end of the quarter, 5 books a week. So is this SMART? Does it follow each of the components? No, it's not. It's in fact overambitious. It's not something that is attainable by the child who actually wrote this goal. So it can be super ambitious, but it needs to be likely possible. And there also needs to be a timeline set. Here, it says by the end of the quarter, 5 books a week. We would have to break that down even more to I'm going to read this book over the course of 4 days, because all of the books are different and they're not going to be the same in terms of how long it takes you to get through them. Let's look at the next one. I will independently learn 2 new vocabulary words per week from the SAT list, 20 total by the end of the quarter. What do you think? Is it SMART? Yes, it's specific. So it says 2 new words from the SAT list. So it's telling me that it's not just any 2 words, that they have to be new. And it's measurable, 20 by the end of second quarter. That's attainable because it's only 2 per week, and it's relevant because the vocabulary is something that you have to have for reading comprehension. And then last, there is a time-bound quarter, which is by the end of second quarter, and it also breaks it very specific into 2 per week. So that time-bound and attainable kind of work hand in hand. About the third one. By the end of the third quarter, I will have written 3 Reader's Theater scripts for scenes from books I have read. That sounds really good. Is it SMART? Yes. So specific, right? Write Reader's Theater scripts. So that is what the student is doing. It's measurable, 3 by the end of the quarter. It's attainable. For this particular student, they can write 3 scripts. And it's relevant because the Reader's Theater writing demonstrates comprehension and builds fluency. So it shows that the book was understood and you know all the words in it to speak them out loud. Not only that, but it's time-bound by the end of the third quarter. We could make it even more specific with a timeline by saying the first script will be done within these weeks, the second script will be done within these weeks, and then the third script. But this is a SMART goal. Let's look at the last one. I will learn more reading strategies. You're right. It's not a SMART goal. It's not specific. It doesn't tell exactly what reading strategies. Maybe we'll be using visualizing and drawing conclusions in order to understand characters. It doesn't give us anything that we can measure. So learn more. We need a bit of a number component. Where did we start and where are we going? Is it attainable? Well, sure, if we know what it is, but we're not sure what it is yet. Is it relevant? Maybe here it's relevant because you do need more reading strategies for comprehension. It's not just like I'm going to go outside and study nature. Maybe that might not be so relevant to the curriculum that you're working on, but reading strategies is. And then timely, there's no time bound. More tells us an amount that is not specific, and it doesn't tell us how long it will take for us to achieve more. So good job with that. Let's go back and look at the different pieces in the PLP that we also need to use in order to write these goals, okay? So I'm going to pull up these PLPs for you, and you should have yours in front of you right now. You have one for reading and for math, and the reading one has several different components that are gray that help guide where we are going. So one of the first things that you can do is start to brainstorm what your goals might be, but don't write them quite yet. Let's pull some data points, some pieces of information, some scores from last year and from this year, and see if that can help us in building what our true goals are. So here we have our reading scores, and this will say math on the math PLP. So you are going to put your EOG score from last year in this box. It would either be a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 for a number. And if you didn't take it, you can write NA, not applicable. And now is also a really good time to go ahead and make a goal score. So what do you want to use for your goal number this year in terms of your EOG reading goal? So 5 being the highest level of proficiency, 4 still being high, understanding that you are college and career ready, 3 being proficient, 2 being not proficient, and 1 having a lot of limitations to how well you performed on that EOG. So go ahead and write your number, what you have for a goal for your EOG, and everybody should put a goal score here. If I was doing this, I would go up 1 level from where I was last year. So if I was a 4, I would be putting a 5 in that box. If I was a 5, I would put a 5 again, because number one, I can't go any higher, but the test gets more difficult. So getting a level 5 on that test is going to still be more challenging because I'm moving up in grade levels. So go ahead and put your reading scores there. Then I want you to look at the NC check-in, and you can write a percentage for your goal here. Okay, so this is the first check-in, and you will be taking this in October for reading and math. Make it a percentage out of 100%. So maybe your goal is to make a 90% on the first check-in. You've been scoring about 80, 85% mastery on some of your exit tickets, and so that is your goal for your first check-in. The next score that you will have is not on this first page. It's going to be on the second page. So I'm going to scroll down here. You'll be able to flip. And it is at the very bottom, and it's your iReady score. And so your teacher will be able to give you your fall iReady score, and you can write it in this box. I'm going to show you some data pieces here for you to also look at your grades from last year. The box in gray at the top says your ELA final grade for the 2018-2019 school year right here. And you can find that when you go to your own Power Schools account as a student in your student database. So here is where you can write your letter grade from last year, what you got in ELA. Maybe you got an 88 for your final grade there. Maybe you got a B plus. So I want you to think about your first quarter goal And I want you to write a letter grade there for your first quarter goal. Now, some of you have a progress report and you want to move from that progress report. Wherever you are right now, you still have a few more weeks, in fact, half a quarter to pull that grade up. So maybe you're sitting at a C+ right now in ELA. Maybe you have some makeup work and want a mastery assessment that you need to redo. So maybe your goal for quarter one is a B for that first ELA grade, okay? Now, I want you to think about your SMART goals, okay? Because you are going to write a SMART goal for your grades, and you're going to write a SMART goal for your test scores, and you're also going to think of a success goal. So 3 goals before you finish today, all right? So let's go and look at your data piece here. And when you go into Power Schools, you can see your historical grades by quarter. So this is grades for the year 2017, 2018. You see how the tab is white there? And you can see the final grade for each semester. You can also find your test scores under the Test Results tab here, and your teacher can give you your iReady scores here. So in reading, you'll have an iReady score that is a 3-digit number, and then you will have phonemic awareness, which is the PA, phonics, high frequency words, vocabulary, literature, and informational text. So this student here, we don't see their name, but they have tested out of almost everything. Here, they are at the mid-8th grade for vocabulary and mid-8th grade for informational text. So those could be their goals on their success plan for their first round of success. Maybe they're really going to focus on understanding new vocabulary words and reading a lot of science and social studies text. Here is where you'll get the score, 655, and then you'll look over on this grid to see where you fell in order to make your goals for that class. Let's go back to the PLP for a moment so that you can see where you are lining up all of these different pieces. So here is my ELA PLP. And the first thing that I'm going to do is make a goal statement for the year. Goal statement 1. All right, so it has to be SMART. That means it is specific, it is measurable, it's attainable, it's relevant, and it has a timetable with it, okay? So maybe my goal statement is that I am going to grow from a level 3 to a level 4 on the EOG by the end of the year, okay? And my action steps will be listed in this box. I'm going to work really hard in vocabulary and independent reading in those classes. And then my timeline for that goal would be 1 school year. Maybe I don't want to focus on the EOG. Maybe I want to focus on my check-in scores. So maybe I want to improve my check-in by 10% each quarter. So I will do that by reading independently at home and focusing on all of my lessons that have to do with literature and informational text each quarter as I get ready to take those check-ins. My timeline will be a little bit shorter because my check-ins are about every 8 or 9 weeks. Today you're writing your goal statement 1, your action steps, and how long it's going to take you to get there. The second part, once you've written your first SMART goal, is to look down here at your success time. What was your score on the first iReady? And what are you doing right now for number 1, for what progress you can make in that success class? It's going to depend on what area you're working in. Maybe it's math, maybe it's reading, maybe you're working in an enrichment class. Are you working on informational text? Are you working with literature, poetry, figurative language? So where are your areas of growth? Maybe you're working on reading comprehension skills for stories, and you're going to fill in number 1 of what are you doing in success to make progress on these goals. All right, you've done a great job listening today. Now is your chance to pause, reflect, and ask your teacher before you start to write on your PLP. Thanks for listening.